Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Venom: The Last Dance just came out in theaters. There are 2 post-credit scenes setting up the future of Sony's Spider-Man crossover universe, the future of Venom, the other symbiotes, and Knull, God of Symbiotes, who Sony is making their Thanos-level Avengers Endgame-style villain to bring all their movies together. So we'll break it all down, and we're giving away tickets for the movie, so I'll name a winner during this video too. Careful for spoilers if you have not seen the movie yet. But during the end of the movie, the Venom symbiote sacrifices itself to save Eddie, Earth, the Venom universe, just in general, like it saves the entire universe, stopping Knull from gaining the Codex from the Venom comics, the more recent comics, which he plans to use to free himself from his prison on the symbiote's home planet of Clintar. Technically, it's not an actual planet, like it's millions of symbiotes who form themselves into a prison rebelling against Knull, just trapping him there. Some of the comic book storyline for Knull they're adapting pretty closely, and some of it is going to be very different. But him on the throne here is him just being trapped by millions of symbiotes. That's why there are tendrils all over the place. Eddie and Venom say their final goodbyes, and Venom implies that this isn't the end. He'll see him again eventually, which they do pay off during the post-credit scenes. Then pulls a very Terminator 2 style ending, covering the xenophage, forcing a bond with it to trap them, and pulling them all into the path of this super acid bath. It's meant to be a big riff on Arnold Schwarzenegger's T2 sacrificing himself by lowering himself into the molten metal so that his body will be destroyed, potentially saving humanity. But also in the case of the Terminator movies, that did not ultimately save humanity, like things were still pretty bad. It's meant to be the same with the future of Knull in all these crossover movies because they've only slowed him down. Eddie then gets pardoned by the United States government for any crimes that he may have committed in the past. There's a bit of a MacGuffin. They kind of hand-wave over a lot of the bad stuff that he got in trouble for before the events of the first Venom movie. They just say that he got kicked out of New York City. There was a whole corrupt judge that they introduced as part of that storyline, so maybe they'll pay that off in some future movie, maybe they won't. But that's how they explain him being in San Francisco during the events of the first movie. He got kicked out of New York City. So he finally goes back to New York City, inside the Venom universe, mind you. There was no Spider-Man swinging around. They imply that there was a Spider-Man inside the New York City of this Venom universe, but they never said which Spider-Man it was. Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, or Andrew Garfield. You can take your pick. Most of the evidence, and I've talked about this in previous videos, is that it should be Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. They play Maroon 5's Memories as he walks down the streets, and they pull a very Deadpool and Wolverine ending kind of twist, showing a montage of clips from all the previous Venom movies as Eddie remembers the symbiote. Ending with the scene of him looking at the Statue of Liberty, which the symbiote said that he wanted to visit someday, saying that he wouldn't forget him, the symbiote. Over the credits, they play a montage of venomized animals, a callback to earlier in the movie when the symbiote jumps from animal to animal multiple times. There was a Venom frog, a Venom fish, a Venom horse. Eventually, we see a Venom cockroach. Don't worry, we'll get to that. The first mid-credit scene is Knull back on Clintar screaming after the xenophage failed to gain the Codex, meaning that he'll have to find some other Codex or another way to break free of the symbiote prison, basically trapping him until his next movie when he shows up again. Then he says your champion has fallen, talking about the Venom symbiote theoretically like he thinks that the Venom symbiote is dead, even though it's not. The planets will be mine, talking about taking over the universe first, and then the rest of the multiverse after that, as the camera pans up the all-black sword, the primal symbiote, with his hands wrapped around the hilt. The primal symbiote is the very first symbiote. He used it to cut the head off of a Celestial, which is supposed to be Nowhere that we saw in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Then he says, the King in Black is awake. I will kill your world, everyone will burn, and you will watch, as they reveal his face. He looks somewhat of an approximation of comic book Knull. There were a lot of people clowning on his appearance on Twitter recently. Andy Serkis is playing the character. His voice is very identifiable, so even if you didn't recognize him underneath that CG, because it doesn't look like Andy Serkis's face, but it does sound like his voice. He looks a little bit more like Arthas. But what he means when he says that, the King in Black, is them saying that they're adapting a version of the King in Black comic book story, which a lot of us theorized the minute that we saw him in the trailers. Like, oh, they're probably going to do King in Black as their big crossover storyline. During that, they get into a lot of Knull's history and what he's trying to do, taking over the multiverse. So they explain that Knull predates the creation of the universe. He existed in the black void of chaos before the Big Bang. When that happened, eternity is born, it creates the Celestials, then the Celestials select Knull as the cosmic custodian of the black void between universes, making him the King of the Black. That's where the title, the King in Black, comes from. Earlier in the movie, the other symbiotes also reference this, like the black void that exists outside of the universe between universes. At the dawn of the universe, Knull rebelled against them, starts killing Celestials using his sword here, the All Black, that he made from a piece of himself. It's what formed all the other symbiotes too. This is literally the very first symbiote. Then he creates the symbiote hive mind in the symbiote codex, which in the movie universe they're explaining are kind of the same thing, but in the comics they're two completely separate things. The codex is sort of like an alternate dimension kind of space that stores the genetic information of anything that the symbiotes come into contact with across the multiverse. Once something is stored inside, either like the DNA of a host, like Eddie Brock for instance, his DNA, or the DNA of different symbiotes themselves, or anything that the symbiotes bond with, or even like a celestial if the symbiote attached itself to a celestial. Once their genetic information is stored inside the codex, Knull can pull them out at will and turn them into his army, controlling them. So the way the symbiote explains this to Eddie is that in the first movie, Eddie died and he brought him back to life, and the codex was created in the bond between the two of them after he came back. So the idea that Knull is going to get the codex from Venom in the movie and use it to conquer the multiverse, basically giving him an infinite army that he can regenerate at will of the most powerful soldiers across the multiverse. But the way they explain it in the movie is that the symbiote and the host form the codex together. If one of them dies, then the codex dies, which is why the Venom symbiote sacrificed itself in the movie. Even though it's revealed to have survived at the end on the cockroach, as long as they're not bonded together, the codex doesn't exist, so Knull can't see them across time and space. Now the idea is that Knull is waiting, looking for another codex to be created when another symbiote bonds with someone else to give him another chance to escape and conquer the multiverse, which they'll cover in some future movie at some point. The director, Kelly Marcel, said that they have multiple future Knull and symbiote movies planned right now, so Sony has big plans for Knull. They introduced many new symbiotes during the movie. A lot of them got eaten by the xenophage, but some of them survived, and there's one still in the MCU after the Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scenes, so I'll talk more about those and which ones they introduced in my full breakdown Easter eggs video for the entire movie later this weekend. There's a lot of confusion about which ones they actually introduced because they changed a lot of the looks from the comics, so it's not meant to be a one-to-one comparison of the comic book versions. During the second post-credit scene, they reveal the bartender from the Venom universe, not the one from the Spider-Man post-credit scene, mind you, different one, different universe, winds up escaping Area 55 in the aftermath of the final battle, stumbles away yelling for help as the camera pans over to show that the Venom symbiote survived by attaching a piece of itself to a cockroach, paying off a couple jokes from earlier in the movie. All the symbiote animals that it just bonded with, but also, way back at the beginning of the movie, Juno Temple's character, a gender-bent version of Thaddeus Payne from the comics, who they call Teddy Payne in the movie, who also has their own powers, and a symbiote now too, tells one of the guards that cockroaches can survive anything, which it does with the help of Venom, a venomized cockroach, setting up the symbiote eventually reuniting with Eddie Brock. So both Eddie and the symbiote are alive at the end of the movie. They can still cross over with Tom Holland in some future movie like Secret Wars or the Knull crossover movie if they want to put Tom Holland in that. One of the early theories now too is that Knull will try to use a codex that might be created when Spider-Man gets his symbiote. If he winds up getting killed and then resurrected with that codex, Knull can try to take that codex and escape. We will probably hear more about this in the next couple of months as they start to talk more about the future of the Knull character. Tom Holland also said that their plans for Spider-Man 4 are crazy different from anything that they've ever tried before, and supposedly it's going to be a lot of multiverse elements during it, so we will see how they incorporate all this Knull crossover stuff. Currently, Tom Holland is widely rumored to be getting the actual symbiote suit during Spider-Man 4 at some point, and he'll wear it through both the next Avengers movies and maybe even a little bit of Spider-Man 5. But all the rumors about Spider-Man 4 being King in Black, I think are not true. More likely that they would just lightly reference some of the Knull stuff because I think that Marvel is trying to keep the MCU stuff as far away from the Sony stuff as possible, as much as they can, because they do have to come to agreement about sharing the Spider-Man character, and a lot of that involves Spider-Man being in their Sony stuff eventually. And it sounds like a lot of those plans will culminate in this big Knull crossover event, King in Black.
That was a tough secret to sit on, because I have a reputation for ruining things, and I strategically have done no press.
You're a little loose-lipped around
MCU
secrets.
Yeah.
There's also the possibility for Tom Hardy to eventually do a Venom 4, but the reason why he said that he's done with the Venom character right now is because his contract was only for 3 Venom movies, a trilogy, and the contract is up. So they basically have to pay him a dump truck more of money to come back as the character. Early guess is that they will back that dump truck of money up to him. Like I said, I'll post my full breakdown Easter eggs for the entire movie later this weekend. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Congratulations, Unwanted Ghost. You're the giveaway winner from my last Big Venom video. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can get your contact details. Everybody click here for that full breakdown of all the Easter eggs. I'll update the link as soon as I post that tomorrow. And click here for all my Venom and Spider-Man videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.